She advised that an autopsy wasn't really needed because she had so many health issues.
Tonight, a Mi'kmaq family wants answers to why their mother died in a Cape Breton hospital.
Wildlife officers exerted crown authority over Indigenous peoples and their way of life.
And wildlife officers invade a culture camp over caribou.
Good evening. Glad you could join us. Saskatchewan's chief coroner says 2 public inquests will be held to examine the mass murder that took place in James Smith Cree Nation and a nearby town back on September 4th. Chief Coroner Clay Wayhill says that one inquest is going to look at the stabbings that left 11 people dead, and the other will look into the death of suspect Miles Sanderson, who RCMP say went into medical distress shortly after he was taken into custody. Wayhill also said preliminary autopsy results show that Sanderson did not die from blunt force trauma. Well, a Mi'kmaq family is outraged and looking for answers nearly 2 years after their mother died at the Cape Breton Regional Hospital. Here's Angel Moore with part 1 of a 2-part exclusive story examining her death.
I thought she had the care that she needed, and we left her that evening. So I was really in shock.
That's how Lynn Francis felt when her mother, Bridget Ann Denny, unexpectedly died. She spoke the Mi'kmaq language and was a mother of 5 and had 15 grandchildren. The active member of the Eskazoni First Nation unexpectedly died on January 20th, 2021 at the Cape Breton Regional Hospital. Denny was admitted the night before for pain and complications due to diabetes. Mary I. Jo Francis, Denny's daughter-in-law, says she died the next morning. The doctor on shift said an autopsy wasn't necessary.
She advised that an autopsy wasn't really needed because she had so many health issues, but really we didn't know how she died.
Her body was cremated, and days before the funeral, the family found out from another patient that Denny had fallen in the middle of the night.
And that we learned that she had fell the night before. That was not brought up when we had that conversation with the doctor and the nurses. We were there for hours after she had passed away. The whole family was there.
Jo Francis obtained Denny's medical chart, filed a complaint with the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Nova Scotia.
But if we had known she had fallen, that all this stuff was wrong with her the night before, we would have wanted an autopsy. The medical examiner wasn't even made aware of her death because it was just kind of like brushed off.
Jo Francis met with hospital staff for answers with no success.
I would say it was heated, actually. It was a lot of back and forth, but a lot of anger and frustration from us. We wanted answers, and we didn't get any. We left there even more angry than we were that day because they had nothing. They had nothing.
The incident sparked an investigation under the Protection for Persons in Care Act. The report concluded the facility failed to provide adequate care based on lack of documentation in response to the patient's unwitnessed fall, including failing to document the affected patient's post-fall vitals and post-fall assessments firsthand. Staff inaccurately completed the affected patient's admission fall risk assessment and hourly checks. No documented evidence that post-fall neurovitals and a SIMS report were completed. And it is beyond the scope of this investigation to determine if this contributed to the patient's death. Associate Professor Lynette Reid, Bioethics at Dalhousie University, cannot comment directly on Denny's case, says inadequate care is unethical.
But when unsafe care is being delivered, then a line is being crossed.
According to the report, even the staff were shocked by her death, saying, all staff reported they were surprised and shocked by the death of the affected patient. One staff reported the death was unexpected. And that means certain protocols had to be followed, but the hospital would not provide their policy when asked. And the medical examiner should have been notified, but the hospital didn't.
I was disgusted with the report. Can't believe that they're actually treating patients like that. Especially your native. They brush you off.
The report says Denny's fall risk assessment was inaccurate, as evidenced by the incorrect scoring for 2 identified risks, that is, IV and history of falls. It did not include the date, time, and signature of the person who completed the assessment. This inaccurate assessment resulted in the affected patient being identified as low risk for falls, and therefore the additional high risk for falls interventions were not considered. But was Denny's death the result of discrimination? Her family is looking for answers, and I'll bring you more of this story in Part 2 on APTN National News.
We want to hear what you think about that story or any of the stories that we bring you or should be bringing you. Here's how you can reach us. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also, of course, find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News and join the conversation and see all of our latest stories. The clock is ticking down ahead of the Quebec provincial election, but the list of Indigenous issues is sure growing. In an attempt to bypass restrictions of traditional pre-election debates, the Assembly of First Nations Quebec-Labrador region held their own Indigenous-specific debate, and our Lindsay Richardson was there.
With under 2 weeks to go before Election Day and too little focus on Indigenous issues, the AFNQL wanted a specific debate, and on Tuesday, they got it.
It is important that these parties commit themselves to making sure that as of October 4th of this year, that the issues find their place in the political arena.
François Legault's coalition Avenir Québec is leading in pre-election polls, but Legault recently apologized for claiming racism in healthcare had been fixed, and official opposition critics took note.
It has been tiresome over the last 4 years to often have to listen to the Premier excuse himself yet again for saying things that were hurtful. We have to restore a tone where we are respectful to one another.
Batting for the CAQ during Tuesday's debate was Indigenous Affairs Minister Yann Lafrenière.
Ce soir, je vous présente un bilan qui n'est pas parfait, c'est clair. J'ai hâte d'entendre les commentaires des collègues. Cependant, je n'accepterai pas qu'on me dise qu'on n'a rien fait, parce qu'on a fait plusieurs choses, mais on peut encore s'améliorer.
The party's opening statements all expressed common desire for nation-to-nation partnerships and common stances on First Nations housing, Indigenous policing as an essential service, and the need for a provincial commission on Indigenous issues. But the public had the opportunity to submit questions for the debate. Their focus:
many people are asking if you intend to respond to the request of all of our nations for the recognition of systemic racism.
It's a hard yes from the Liberal Party.
There is systemic racism in Quebec. The list of examples is long.
But the CAQ draws a hard line in the sand.
On est dans l'action, on a fait des belles avancées.
But Quebec Solidaire sees it differently.
Oui, il y a de la formation qui a été faite, mais ce n'est pas une formation de 3 heures qu'on va changer les affaires. C'est qu'il faut changer les paradigmes. Et ça commence par un leadership assumé de notre chef d'État notamment, qui reconnaît clairement qu'il y en a du racisme systémique.
But the public also wanted to attack the issue of language, and Bill 96, legislation meant to promote and protect French. The CAQ, if re-elected, is considering a separate bill to protect Indigenous languages. Quebec Solidaire and the Liberals both want Bill 96 redrafted with Indigenous exemptions. While the Parti québécois feels Indigenous culture is part of the Québécois culture they're seeking to protect.
La défense et le rayonnement de la langue française au Québec, c'est d'abord et avant tout pour la diversité de toutes les langues. Bien sûr, les langues autochtones, c'est de la diversité linguistique et culturelle aussi, donc on est d'accord avec ça, il faut trouver la voie de passage.
Quebecers head to the polls on October 3rd. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
The Indigenous population in Canada continues to grow and has now reached 1.8 million people. This is according to figures released Tuesday morning from the 2021 census. And for the first time in the census population enumeration, the First Nations population has topped 1 million people. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
The Indigenous population in Canada grew by 9.7% between 2016 and 2021. According to Statistics Canada, This outstrips the non-Indigenous population, which grew by 5.3%. However, this number is lower than 2016 growth, which was almost 19%. Christopher Penny is with Stats Canada.
We see differences when it comes to Inuit, Métis, and First Nations, and we see differences at the regional level as well. So we see Métis growth has slowed, and we see First Nations with registry status has slowed. Again, all still higher than the non-Indigenous population.
He says the lower growth rate may be due to a number of factors.
But we also see other growth from response mobility, and this is people that are answering the census differently in one year than they do in the past. And this can be due to a number of factors. There have been a number of court decisions or legislative changes that have changed the requirements or the eligibility for the Indian Act or for other agreements. There are the signatures of modern treaties or other modern agreements.
Indigenous Services Canada Minister Patty Hajdu says she also doesn't know why the growth rate slowed, but she says the government sees an overall growing Indigenous population as a tremendous opportunity.
That means that Indigenous people have amongst the youngest population that they are serving in their own communities. It means that there's an opportunity to invest in young people so they reach their full potential. It means that we have a growing population within Canada that is actually the envy of the G7.
The Stats Canada numbers also show a rapidly rising Indigenous population in urban centres. This includes a major growth of Inuit population living outside Inuit Nunavut at almost 24%. Hajdu says this shows the importance of the government working with partners like Indigenous Friendship Centres to provide services.
That are looking at things like how to access higher education, how to manage the bureaucracy of living in an urban setting, how to fill out important forms for the federal government, like tax forms that allow them to collect Canada Child benefits.
APTN reached out to the Assembly of First Nations and Inuit Taprit Kanatami for comment, but did not hear back by airtime. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
The 500-person Dene community of Fort Good Hope in the Northwest Territories is in mourning. RCMP say that 3 people were stabbed in the community last night, leaving 1 dead and 2 others injured. RCMP have identified a suspect in the stabbings and are looking for a 24-year-old Thaddeus McNeely. The 2 injured victims were medevaced to Yellowknife. The extent of their injuries is not known at this time. Police are asking community members to stay vigilant as officers continue to search for the suspect. We need to take a quick break, but still ahead, a raid at a cultural camp has some demanding an apology from the Northwest Territory government. We'll tell you about that when we come back. Little Dene First Nation is demanding an apology from the Northwest Territories Environmental Department after what they say was a forceful invasion on their cultural camp. Back on September 13th, wildlife officers helicoptered to the camp to investigate illegal caribou harvesting within a no-hunting zone that encompasses that fragile Bathurst caribou herd. So conservation officers had a search warrant after the discovery of 10 carcasses some 150 kilometers north of the camp. Witnesses say they searched family tents and freezers for upwards of 4 hours and took samples of meat that they found. This video shot by camp participants has been circulating on social media. They're calling the raid triggering and traumatic for children and elders. Larry Innes, the lawyer for the Little Dene First Nation, says the First Nation intends to challenge the validity of the warrant.
It could have just as easily been a scene from 1922. Wildlife officers exerted Crown authority over Indigenous peoples and their way of life, wildlife or game laws, as they were called. This was a deliberate strategy of the colonial government to sedentarize Indigenous communities. That history is, of course, well known to Nitsuke and Nitsuke elders, and now it's being relived.
The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is coming up on September 30th, and for Georgina Jolibois, this is a long time coming. She proposed the day in the House of Commons while she was an MP back in 2018. The now mayor of La Loche, Saskatchewan, joins me now. Thanks for joining us. So why did you feel back when you were an MP that an Orange Shirt Day was necessary in Canada?
As an Indigenous person, as a Dene woman from northern Saskatchewan, I felt across Canada over the years, when it initially was thinking about June 21, it's very important for Canadians to recognize Indigenous people through a stat holiday. And the work that I did in the House of Commons, it was at the right time and the right moment, and there was support to support the legislation and pass the House of Commons to 1, 2, 3 readings.
I'm curious, do you feel that much has changed in the last year, maybe even 2, among Canadians towards reconciliation?
In Saskatchewan, in northern Saskatchewan, and friends across Canada, I believe there is awareness across Canada for First Nations and Métis Inuit people too. We are part of the Canadian economy. We contribute to the Canadian economy, and all of us are looking for an excellent quality of life that Canada has to offer and in our provinces. So yes, there's more awareness, and I say that. I just got an invite the other day regarding a request from a core group, a medical team in Toronto, who are physicians and social workers, and they have allotted some time to allow me to do the presentation to them to talk about this very important legislation.
Wow.
So there is awareness, and a lot of work still needs to be done, but we are making progress.
I've heard some say that conciliation is what's actually needed because there was never actual recognition by most Canadians of the harms that were done. Do you feel that that's accurate, or do you feel that Canadians really are understanding and wanting to atone for those harms?
I think Canada and the world, especially with the Pope's visit in July and the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church, I think the Anglican Church should have done more when the bishop came to visit in Saskatchewan. But there are more awareness, and that's a good thing. So because there's so much work that still needs to be done, the work that Truth and Reconciliation Commission did across Canada was hard work, incredible work, and the recommendations they laid out. The legislation, further steps need to occur. The provinces, other than the provincial of BC, I believe, across Canada, the provinces still need to do their part. I think the provincial governments are forgetting that there were provincially run institutions. Well, there were in Saskatchewan, for example, boarding schools in Isle Cross and Timber Bay, and the day schools that were run provincially in communities, and they're not recognized for compensation, they're not recognized for other initiatives around it. So there's so much work that still needs to occur. It would be excellent for provinces to have a provincial legislation to make September 30th a holiday.
Absolutely. How are you personally going to be marking the day?
In my community, I believe the municipality, we did do that last year. The office will close. We will honor the September 30th holiday. Already this week, people with their orange shirts. Since last year, now there's more awareness, and there's more people are talking, and they want to have to make sure that they have their orange shirts and that they're reflecting in their thinking. And it will be a time, again, when I was working on the legislation, a time to reflect and a time to heal and do other work around it.
Well, we thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts with us on this very important day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much for this. Thank you.
We need to take another break, but we've got more news still ahead, so stay with us. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Trudy B. Jacobs sent this great photo in. It's the early morning in Sioux Lookout, Ontario, as the fog rests across the calm waters of an early morning. Great photo, Trudy. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. If you have a photo that you'd like to share, you can send it to share at aptn.ca. That's, of course, by email. Let's take a look now at what tomorrow's weather forecast is going to bring. On the East Coast, we got showers and 16 for St. John's, Halifax, cloud and 20 degrees. Kuujjuaq 18 and showers, sunshine, and 16 for Nain. Sept-Îles 12 and showers. Montreal, you're getting rain too, 18 degrees. Most of southern Quebec is there. Showers for North Bay, 20 degrees. A mix of sun and cloud, 12 expected for Sault Ste. Marie. Sioux Lookout 14 and sunny skies. Kapuskasing 7 and showers. Puckatawagan 18 and sunny. Norway House 16 and sunshine. 17 and sunny for Winnipeg. And most of southern Manitoba, it looks like. 15 and showers for Swift Current, 20 for North Battleford and Saskatoon, 18 for La Ronge, Meadow Lake, and Stony Rapids, sunshine. 20 and sunny for High Level, 22 and sunshine for Grand Prairie. 23 and sunny for Edmonton, 13 and showers for Medicine Hat. 23 and sunny for Kamloops, sunshine for Quesnel, 19 degrees expected there. 20 and sunshine for Fort Nelson, 16 and showers for Smithers. Whitehorse 12 and sunny skies. Old Crow mix of sun and cloud, 5 degrees. 22 for Fort Simpson, 16 and sunshine for Yellowknife. In Nuvik, you might be getting some flurries, 8 degrees, Tuktoyaktuk snow, and 2. 0 for New Yacht with flurries expected there. Arviat, mix of sun and cloud, and 13. Kenite 0 with a mix of sun and cloud. Clyde River snow and 1 degree. Before we go tonight, here's a story that we're working on for later.
I'm Chris Stewart, and I'll be bringing you this story soon. The Sampson Cree Nation in Alberta has a serious crime problem. After 2 recent deaths, residents are saying enough is enough.
Where's our support from the chief and council to do something about all the gang violence, all the deaths, all the shootings, all the overdoses that are happening?
After I buried my son on Friday, the next day, Saturday, I was stopping a gang fight and I was stopping another fight because I don't want to see it anymore. You know, it's right outside my door.
This 3-part series coming soon on the APTN National News.
Looking forward to that one. Well, that is a wrap on your midweek news. We are always thankful that you choose to tune in and watch. If you've missed any news recently, you can always head to our website, aptnnews.ca. Go catch up there on all your Indigenous news from across the country. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.